Talking with Jim Pattison, Managing Director, CEO, and Chairman of the Jim Pattison Group. Overall, they employ 32,000 people. We were talking about at Expo, and you chaired Expo for $1, as I recall. But what do you think Expo did for British Columbia?
Well, it certainly helped. I think a lot of people focused that didn't live in this part of the world on Vancouver. I'm talking about people in the U.S., certainly Hong Kong, and certainly I think that it gave us some momentum at the time, economic momentum, because at that time when Bill Bennett decided to go ahead with it, we were in a recession here. If you remember, the unemployment rate was high, business was not very robust. And he took a gamble, and it worked out great. It was Grace McCarthy's idea, as I remember, and he followed through and did an excellent job of taking the risk. And the rest of us just were volunteers working. And I think it brought the community together, and the community being the province of British Columbia.
We were also talking about the fact that I saw you at the opening of the new BC Place Stadium, and I do like to emphasize that it's a new BC Place Stadium. It's much, much more than just a roof, but it now links with the Trade and Convention Centre down on the harbour. Those two things together become pretty important for the city of Vancouver and the province.
This is a great asset. I mean, I really am impressed with the excellent job they did at BC Place, and the convention center is spectacular. I'm really sold on these kinds of things for our city and our province. These are great assets, and they're big ticket items, but in my opinion, they're very, very good things to do, and I'm really impressed with the good job they've done in both of them.
Yeah, they're both beautiful facilities, although they both went considerably over budget.
Well, that's the nature of some of these things, and it seems to be a bad thing that not always happens, but it certainly happens. But you're right, it went over budget, but they're great assets.
I also wanted to touch on the business of philanthropy. You've been very generous in recent years with grants to hospitals and whatnot. When did you decide to engage in that work?
Well, that was easy for me. When I was a very small boy, like 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, my dad always taught me to give 10% of what I made. So if I got a 50-cent allowance, I gave 5 cents, and we gave it to the church. I was brought up in evangelical type church, and still support that kind of organizations, and so it was easy. I always was trained to give money, and then as time went by and as the company grew, we started to give to more things that we could, to community things. And then there's the third world, places in Africa where we support, and in Israel, and a lot of different community stuff and national stuff. In the U.S., we give money to where we make our money. And we have a program that we're involved in the U.S. where we support education for children that are unable to get ahead, and with scholarships and so on. And so over time, it wasn't hard for me, because I was always taught to give to when I was growing up.
But the 5% just got to be more and more money.
Yeah, the money. It always became more. As we got bigger, we were able to do more things. I'm glad we're able to do it, because there's one time we couldn't give the kind of money we do today. How
do you manage your time?
Well, that's a good question, and I work hard at it. I have, of course, a great help. My assistant, Maureen Chance, been with me 49 years.
49 years?
49 years. And, boy, she's taken a lot of the work off my hands that I do on a day-to-day basis. And then, of course, the key is getting the right executive team around. And then, of course, we travel a lot, as you talked about earlier, and I try to manage our travel time with being home. We have regular meetings that we schedule 3, 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months in advance. And they're all in different parts of the world, actually. And so we have schedules and try to allow some time for flexibility, but that's what we do.
Do you ever take a holiday?
Well, every day is a holiday for me, Bill. I can't wait to get to work in the morning. But the answer is we have a place down in Palm Springs, and I go down with my family there at Christmas time, and I take my wife down usually for a week and a half or so. The April is actually coming up. So then a lot of other, excuse me. And there are a lot of other things, but it's not hard. What I do is not work.
But you never go to the beach.
Oh, I never go to the beach, no.
And you have a stunningly beautiful boat, a yacht, the Nova Spirit. Do you ever just go out on that by yourself, or you and Mary, and just spend a few days on the boat, or do you always use it for business?
I did it once. I took one weekend. We took the dog.
The whole weekend?
Yeah, we took the weekend and 3 or 4 years ago, and it was just fine. But usually, if we go out, we'll take some people with us. But last year, I did a bad job. I didn't get out very much last year.
Final few minutes with Jimmy Pattison. When we come back, I'm going to do what I call my Vanity Fair segment of the program, see if we can find out just a little bit more personal information from Jimmy Pattison. Talking with Jim Pattison, Managing Director, CEO, and Chairman of the Jim Pattison Group. You're in the book business.
You're right.
How's that going?
Well, it's declining. And last year, there's a sharp decline, about 24% across the... these are all books. I'm talking U.S. numbers now. We're down 24% across the board pretty well, but there's a huge swing. Like novels, romance, that type of thing, was down about 42%. And cookbooks are very popular, relatively speaking. They were only down 6%. Children's books were down 6%. And Guinness World Records books were down. In fact, they're up in some countries and down in others, but it's a big difference on what the topic is and what type of book sells.
So is that largely because of technology, because of tablets?
The iPads are the big deal. Technology is a huge issue, and it's going to continue to be.
So how do you manage a declining market?
Well, you look for opportunities to expand the business. And this is maybe one of the best things that can happen to people like us, because it forces us to look for new opportunities in a related business. And we're in the magazine business as well as books, and the magazine business is down. But out of that, we've moved into, I'm talking U.S. now, we've moved into the merchandising, a company which is growing rapidly. So we're taking the base of what we have and expanding it into other things. So it's actually quite interesting. This is when most of the opportunities come, Bill, is when things change. Then there are opportunities that always come. The key is spot the trend and go for it.
Speaking of books, do you ever have time to read one?
No, I don't.
You don't?
No, I don't. I read magazines and newspapers.
What magazines?
Well, just business magazines, Forbes, Fortune, that kind of thing.
Question we've been asking all of the CEOs. If you could have dinner with any 4 people, living or dead, who would they be and why?
Well, my number one person would be Winston Churchill, because when I was growing up, I can remember him over shortwave talking to the people about all he could promise people was blood, sweat, toil, and tears, and we listened to it on our radio, shortwave radio at home. We lived off of 32nd and Main Street, off of just a block off of Main, and I remember this radio that we had was so important because it was telling us all about the war and everything from Europe, from London. So Winston Churchill would be number one. Number two, why? Because he was everybody focused on Winston Churchill, and man, he was obviously a great character. And then after that, I would say Margaret Thatcher would probably be one of the most impressive people I've ever met. I've had the opportunity to have dinner with her several times, and I would love to have it again. And she is still alive in Britain. Then the other person that I met through Ronald Reagan, and I've had dinner with him. It was Gorbachev, and not by myself, but there would be maybe 6 or 8 people. I was on a train with him with the Reagans one time, or the Bushes rather, and so I'd like to have dinner with him again. Very impressive fellow, and then George Bush, Senior. Who I got to know quite well, and he is without a question one of the finest human beings I've ever met. And I'd love to have dinner with him any night that he could ever put the time.
That would be quite a dinner to be a fly on the wall for. Any regrets? Anything that you wished you didn't do, hadn't done, or missed doing?
Yes. I have lots of things I've missed doing. I made a lot of mistakes, Bill, over the years. But big picture, I don't have any regrets. I'm so grateful I was allowed to be born in this part of the world, in Canada, under the free enterprise system and a democracy. I lived in Canada, having the great neighbor, the U.S. next door as our neighbor. What an opportunity for people like ourselves. And I just haven't got one kick in the whole world.
You've never been very political, and yet you've hired 2 premiers, both of whom were Social Democrats.
That's right. They were both NDPers.
People would be surprised, I think, or have been surprised at that. But certainly, as we talked earlier, the move to hire Glenn Clark worked out very well. Dave Barrett worked for you, but on the radio side, he did a talk show at CJOR for a time. But you watch politics. You don't get involved very much. But do you have a view of where this province is going? And I don't just mean politically. I mean the economic, short-term, long-term future of British Columbia.
The future of British Columbia has got nowhere to go but up. The opportunities in this province are absolutely boundless. We are geographically situated in the world in one of the very special places. In addition to that, we got the U.S. As an export market right next door. We sitting here got the huge Asia opportunity, and we have the natural resources in Western Canada in particular. We got a stable government. We got the best banking system in the world to support us. And I just can't imagine of a better place to live anywhere in the world, apart from being in a nice city like living in Vancouver, living in British Columbia. This country has got to be, in my opinion, one or two of the best countries in the whole world.
What would be the other one?
United States.
Even today?
Absolutely.
You're confident they're going to make an economic recovery?
Well, I would never rule the Americans out. They got themselves in a tough spot with all this debt they got around their neck. But the Americans, if you just look at history, the Americans are very innovative, and I'd never count them out.
Mr. Pattison, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate the time, and I know you've got to get back to work.
Thank you.
Jessica will be here with your feedback right after this.
CKNW's Chief Executives is brought to you by the Sauder School of Business, connecting employers with the best and brightest leaders of tomorrow.